Xbox is synonymous with first-person shooters and brought us one of the biggest IPs in the gaming industry to this day. With Halo ultimately changing the FPS market that we know and love, there are just so many great games right now that we can delve into, especially on Xbox and Game Pass. With that in mind, what I wanted to do today was basically cover 15 incredible new FPS games coming to Xbox and Xbox Game Pass in 2026. With that though, my name is Fletcher and this is Xbox Nation, and let's just dive right into the FPS games coming our way next year. There's something just so refreshing about shooters that really don't take themselves too seriously, and High on Life 2 looks ready to lean into that even harder with its chaos. This sequel is looking to keep that signature sort of talking guns front and center though, but is now shaking up things with some brand new movement systems built around a skateboard. Instead of simply sprinting, players will now be able to grind rails, launch off ramps and chain momentum together, giving combat a sort of faster and more playful feel to it. It's a very small change though on paper, but is one that could drastically alter how levels are approached. Even better, the game is actually moving forward without Justin Roiland, opening the door for a broader comedic style and isn't really locked into the same sort of improvised delivery. That means more mobility, more absurdity and way more freedom, and is exactly the kind of evolution that this series really needed. And yes, it is still landing day one onto Xbox Game Pass. At first glance, Mouse PI for Hire looks like something pulled straight out of a vintage cartoon reel, but don't let that art style really fool you. Beneath that sort of hand-drawn animation style and muted colour palette is a fully fledged first-person shooter with a noir twist. Imagine a 1930s cartoon character though, basically turned hard-boiled detective, packing a Tommy gun and navigating a corrupted city. Combat will only be part of the experience though, as we're basically encouraged to explore the environments, uncover different clues and actually play the role of a private investigator. The visual style alone would have been enough to turn heads, and it really has me intrigued alone, but the gameplay depth is what really does sell it. It isn't going to be a gimmick of a game, it is genuinely turning loads of creative genres into one package, and it can end up being a surprising game for a lot of people out there. Halo Combat Evolved maybe didn't need to be remade a second time around, but it's hard to argue against the brilliance of that original title, and of course is still a fantastic combat sandbox to this day. Halo Campaign Evolved is also a great chance for Halo Studios to really go back to basics and reset after a seemingly never-ending cascade of whiffs that has only seemed to tick off many of us within the hardcore Halo community. So while the prospect of playing the first Halo again with a few modern added features like new missions, co-op, weapons from later entries and some rebalance levels is intriguing, what this game could potentially represent is also quite interesting. I'm really keen to see how it obviously plays out, especially with all the leadership changes, and hopefully this is the right track for Halo going on in the near future. Revealed towards the end of August at the opening night live at Gamescom, Valor Mortis instantly turned many heads at once as the most striking new sort of Souls-like projects on the horizon, and that's because instead of a third-person perspective, it's now going FPS. This one is actually developed by the same team behind the Ghost Runner series, and it looks to combine their punishing combat that they're known for, but with a fascinating Napoleonic era setting that's rarely explored these days. Of course though, we will be put in the shoes of William, a soldier of the Grand Army that's resurrected from his battlefield grave, and he's only to awaken into a Europe that has been ravaged by plague and corruption. Their devs have said there'll be a ton of brutal battles, eerie plague-ridden environments, and tons of supernatural elements that make it a refreshing twist on this genre. From what I've played in its alpha test, it's absolutely fantastic and they really nailed that combat, and it is scheduled for sometime in early 2026, and I just cannot wait to get my hands on this new FPS RPG Souls-like game for the very first time. If realism-heavy war shooters are more your thing though, then Hell Let Loose Vietnam should already be on your radar, to be honest. This one's going to be building on the intense foundation of the original game, but its brand new entry will shift the setting to the Vietnam War, and is coming to both the Xbox Series consoles and PC sometime in 2026. The goal with this one though isn't going to be fast-paced arcade action like you see in games like Call of Duty, instead its real aim is the authenticity. The developers are really emphasizing historically sensitive storytelling, but of course it's going to be paired with large-scale combined arms gameplay like the original. Infantry combat is joined by armor, air support, boats, and iconic Huey helicopters for the very first time, and all going to be working together on these sprawling maps. From the footage that we've seen so far, it does capture the chaos, tension, and psychological weight of that era of warfare incredibly well, even though it did have a few FPS dips here and there. If you thought the original was going to be intense, then this one looks like it's going to go even further, and I bloody can't wait to get my hands on it. We have another one as well, which isn't going for futuristic battle battles, and of course going for that same sort of era, however about 10 to 20 years beforehand. World War I Gallipoli is actually taking us straight into one of the most brutal conflicts in all of history that never really gets covered. It is actually being developed as well by the same team behind the World War I series, but its new entry launches in early 2026 and will be focusing on the infamous Gallipoli campaign. You can expect large-scale multiplayer combat like you saw with the previous games unlike Hell Let Loose, and that's going to be across beaches, cliffs and sweeping desert landscapes, and they're all designed to push modern hardware to their limits. Whilst multiplayer is going to be the core of the experience, players who prefer a slower pace can also jump into custom matches or even bot-supported modes, which weren't actually supported in the older entries. The developers do describe this as their most immersive World War I project yet, and it's really exciting to see World War shooters making a strong comeback for this generation. This one is absolutely in my must playlist, and I just cannot wait to see more gameplay like we saw with Hell Let Loose Vietnam. John Carpenter's Toxic Commando looks like pure chaotic fun. The game is really dripping with just over-the-top sort of B-movie energy to it that should feel right at home for fans of classic co-op shooters like Left 4 Dead. In this one though, you can actually team up with your friends to mow down massive hordes of undead, whether they're on foot or tearing through environments in your vehicles. Under the hood though, the Swarm engine, previously used in games like World War Z, is doing the heavy lifting of course, meaning huge enemy count and non-stop action are basically guaranteed. Currently, this one is targeting an early 2026 release window on both the series consoles and PC, and this is easily one of my most anticipated zombie games on the horizon. Flashy trailers of course don't always tell the full story, and No Law is a great example of that. What initially looked like a pure adrenaline-fueled cyberpunk shooter actually hides a slower and more thoughtful side beneath the surface. Yes, this one's going to include some fast-paced gunplay and stylish takedowns, but you can also approach missions with stealth, careful planning, and customized builds. The developers have said that choices here will really matter, and that's not just going to be in combat. That flexibility gives the game an immersive sim sort of edge that wasn't immediately obvious though during its reveal. For Neon Giant, this feels like a massive and big leap forward compared to the Ascent, and they're going to be trading simplicity for ambition, and it might end up being one of the most complex and rewarding games we will see in 2026. Blood, faith, and fear really do sit at the centre of Crisol Theatre of Idols, and it wastes no time making players really uncomfortable. This one though is going to be set in the eerie Spain-inspired land of Hispania, and this shooter really leans heavily into religious symbolism and unsettling body horror. The combat isn't just violent, it's sacrificial, requiring you to drain your own blood to power arcane weapons, and so much more. With that though, every fight is of course going to feel incredibly tense, not just because of the grotesque enemies of course, but because survival always comes at a cost. The creature design though, as you can probably see when you're well aware on screen now, blends angelic beauty with nightmarish corruption, creating a sort of striking visual identity that's really hard to forget. The atmosphere and presentation are already doing the heavy lifting, and it's why it's on my wish list, but it now just needs the gameplay depth to fully back this one up. Ill completely caught me off guard when it showed up during a showcase earlier in 2025, and judging by many of your reactions from those of you who watched the channel, I really wasn't alone with being excited for this one. This is a first-person horror experience that's going to be built around raw realism, throwing players into a decaying fortress that's been consumed by something deeply unnatural. Every clip here just screams discomfort, from the grotesque enemy designs to the brutal physics-driven combat that makes every encounter feel so unpredictable. What really is elevating this project though is the team really that's behind this one, with prior work on major horror films and games including Until Dawn. Their goal on this one isn't going to be cheap jump scares, but psychological pressure that lingers long after you've stopped playing, and that's why it's so firmly on my wish list. That final moment within the trailer though still does live rent-free in my head, and honestly I just cannot wait to see more about Ill in the near future. I highly recommend you keep an eye on this next game. Sand is an open-world PvPvE extraction shooter where you command massive walkers. These are giant mechs built to dominate endless post-apocalyptic dunes. It's a hostile, ever-changing battlefield as well, where you'll basically scavenge, fight, and extract resources while facing rival players and environmental threats. The maps though, from what I've seen, are procedurally generated, meaning that no two expeditions will ever play the same, and that really does force you to adapt and strategize on the fly. The heart of all of it though will of course be your walker, which you can upgrade and customize to your heart's content, and is a mobile base of survival and destruction. Sand is really shaping up to deliver a unique blend of construction, combat, and high-stakes survival, and I'm finally excited to try it on Xbox when it lands sometime next year. If you're looking for another zombie shooter which isn't John Carpenter's Toxic Commando, then let me introduce you to Projekt Z Beyond Order, and this is one you'll want to keep your eye on as we head towards 2026. This genre of course may be packed by now, but this project immediately separates itself from the crowd with a striking alternate World War II setting and a heavy focus on co-op gameplay. In this one, you'll be leading a squad of specialized soldiers as they venture into a remote, overgrown island, hiding the remnants of a horrifying Nazi experiment designed to weaponize the undead into so much more. The early footage I've seen has really highlighted the impressive visuals and a strong sense of atmosphere, suggesting this could be more than just another zombie shooter on the market. I've been tracking this game for years now, ever since I've had early conversations with the developers as they were planning on bringing this to Google Stadia, and seeing how far it's come along is genuinely exciting. After nearly 4 years now of total radio silence, Exomecha unexpectedly resurfaced earlier in 2025, and this time is looking bloody real. The game is now targeting a Q1 to Q2 2026 release window, but there's a major change and it's no longer a free-to-play experience. Instead, this one will launch at a $20 premium experience price point, and while that might surprise some people out there, the project itself has clearly grown in scale. What was once a solo effort is now backed by a 5-person team with promises of significantly more content at its launch date. The final game will include a large-scale multiplayer experience set in a sci-fi universe featuring modes like a 20v20 conquest and also a wild 1 vs 100 Mecha Royale mode. I've already played an exclusive preview which you can check out here on the channel, and I just can't wait to get my hands on the full game once it releases sometime in 2026. One of the most talked about releases in recent memory just had to be Atomic Heart, especially after how much buzz the original created before launch. Whilst the first game really didn't fully live up to its every expectation, it really delivered a bold and memorable experience that clearly laid the groundwork for something bigger. Now, developer Munfish is officially doubling down with a sequel called Atomic Heart 2 of course, that really aims to push everything even further. This next chapter keeps the first-person action foundation intact, but will lean harder into its RPG mechanics and a more expansive open world structure backed up by an incredible narrative. One thing I cannot wait for is just to see how in-depth they really go with the narrative, as god that main character was bloody awful, but this time it's really looking to really turn up the notch into a global crisis. There's no fixed release date for this one as of yet, but late 2026 feels like a very realistic window. You know what we need right now? A time loop game. Yes, we might have seen few of them by now, but it's going to be one genre that I feel is going to be incredibly strong in 2026. Thankfully, Active Matter really fits that bill, and it's a multiversal game to boot. This time though, you'll be a soldier who is literally caught in a time loop, or also being stuck in a certain bubble of space that keeps you coming back when the mission is over. As such, you never know what you'll encounter, and the loop will start again as the multiverse bleeds into this space. Other characters you've already killed before, well, they could return and be stronger and meaner than ever before. Your goal though is to get as much of the matter of this place as possible so your battles aren't for nothing, and it's going to be a very truly unique and mind-bending experience that we've never seen before. I really want a fun time loop game, and honestly Deathloop really didn't gel with me, so this one is looking right up my street when it finally comes to Xbox sometime within 2026. What FPS game are you looking forward to out of this list? I would be keen to hear your thoughts on them in the comments below. Make sure to smash that like button if you did enjoy this video, and of course subscribe for more Xbox content on a daily basis. I will now be returning for daily content after a 2-day hiatus since I've basically moved, so expect a massive setup video in the next few days, and so much more here on the channel into 2026. Whilst here though, and if you do want to check out some more of my Xbox content here on the channel, why don't you check out the video on screen now. I actually covered some of the games coming out this January for both Xbox and Game Pass, and it's definitely well worth checking out, as there's a few games that might pique your interest into next month.